Hello, it's time for video 3A. I'm Mr. Miller, and I hope you're doing great today. Today we're going to talk about CPCTC and its converse. So first of all, what is CPCTC? Okay, well, that's short for corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So if two triangles are congruent, all their angles have to be congruent and all their sides have to be congruent. And that's what this statement says. The actual statement of CPCTC is, if two triangles are congruent, then the corresponding parts of the triangles are congruent. For instance, these two triangles down here, if they're congruent, then I know that their matching parts are congruent. Like angle A has to be congruent to angle D, angle B has to be congruent to angle E, etc. Now, the converse of something is when you switch the statement around, you kind of make it go backwards. And if we switch this first statement around, we get if all corresponding parts of two triangles are congruent, then the triangles themselves are congruent. That's kind of backwards. So again, what I was saying, if all the matching parts are there, then the triangles must be congruent. So right now, in order to show two triangles are congruent, we'd have to show that all three angles match each other and are congruent, and all three sides match each other and are congruent. All right, so our first example is about CPCTC. We're given that the two triangles are congruent, and they want us to write all the corresponding parts that must be congruent also. Well, the congruence statement can help us do that. So let's start with angles. This tells me that angle M must go with angle G. So I'll mark it like this. So angle M is congruent to angle G. That's our first relationship. All right. Then angle L goes with angle H. So this angle apparently goes with this angle. So angle L is congruent to angle H. Should put a congruent symbol there. Okay, then lastly, angle K and angle I, the third angles match. So angle K is congruent to angle I. All right, those are the three angles. Now we have three sides that match. So if I look here, I have ML. The first two letters here, that must match GH. So ML is that side. That must match GH. So we can write ML. The segment ML is congruent to GH. What else? Well, if I take the last two, LK matches HI. So LK is this side. HI is that side. So KL is congruent to, what did I say? IH. Okay, what's the third side? That must be MK. MK is congruent to GI. Okay, so CPCTC says because the triangles are congruent, all these things are true. The converse goes backwards. It says if all these six things are true, the triangles must be congruent. All right, and that's what we're going to use here. So it says determine whether the given triangles are congruent. Well, if all their six matching parts are congruent, the triangles are congruent. Because if all their parts match, I could put one triangle on top of the other and it would match it exactly. Okay, so start checking the angles. This 30-degree angle matches that 30-degree angle. That 60 degrees matches this 60 degrees. This right angle matches that right angle. So they have three sets of matching angles. Let's check out the sides. This 2 meters matches that 2 meters. This 1 meter matches that. And this 1.7 here matches that 1.7. All their corresponding parts are congruent, so the triangles have to be congruent. And again, they would perfectly overlap. So yes, these are congruent. And the reason is the converse of CPCTC. Because all the corresponding parts are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. Okay, take a look at these two. Well, they didn't give us the angle, so I guess we'll start with the sides. We'll start matching them. This 7.9 centimeter side matches this one. This 12.1 centimeter side matches this one. Uh-oh, but this side is 8.5 and this side's 8.4. Even if we have just one part that doesn't match, the triangles can't be congruent. Because if I put them on top of each other, excuse me, CB would be longer than EF. So this is not congruent. The parts don't match. So not congruent. Okay, what else do we have? Well, here's another type of problem. It says find the value of the variable that results in congruent triangles. Okay, well, that means we have to figure out what this angle should be so it matches the angle over here. So you see that this 25 matches that 25. That 112 matches this 112. Whatever x plus 17 is, it should match this angle. So we have to figure out what that is. So we can do that, figure out what this is by doing 180 minus 25 and subtracting 112. So that's the same as 180 minus 137, which I believe would be 43. Okay, so we know that this angle, in order to match that one, should be 43 degrees. So we just set up an equation. X plus 17 equals 43. And then if we subtract 17 from both sides, we figure out what x is. And we get x is 26. Okay, so the idea is if we want the triangles to be congruent, their matching parts have to be congruent. And that's how we set up an equation. Okay, it's time for our last example. This is a short video today. Find the value of the variable that results in congruent triangles. So kind of the same directions as last time. This time, the variable we're looking for is in one of the sides. So this side has to be congruent to this side since they're corresponding. Okay, so all we have to do is set 4y plus 12 equal to 32. Okay, then we just solve. We subtract 12 from both sides. And we get 4y equals 32 minus 12 is 20. You could also use backtracking. I'm kind of using the old school way of solving an equation, but you could backtrack this also, and we get y equals 5. If y equals 5, 4 times 5 is 20 plus 12 is 32, and those two sides would match, and then the triangles would be congruent. Okay, time for your journal assignment. So you just got 3 short problems to do. In the first one, we're told that these two triangles are congruent. So write 6 congruent statements for the corresponding parts. You should have 3 statements for their matching angles and 3 statements for their matching sides. For number 2, you just got to determine if these two triangles are congruent or not. So see if all their parts match each other. If they have 6 corresponding parts that match and are equal, then they're congruent. All right, and the last one, you got to find the value of variable that would make these congruent. So a little hint here, this angle right here is going to have to equal that angle. So find angle L first, and then set 5x plus 30 equal to it so that they'll match. Good luck.